Grandmother Samshin is the goddess of life and production as a god called it birth god in our folk religion. She was worshipped as a very important family god because she was regarded as a goddess in charge of gestation and childbirth and parenting. How to serve Samshin varies depending on the province, and when mother gives birth, they first hang a straw rope outside of the gate and offer white cooked rice and sea mustard soup and freshly drawn water to Samshin as an appreciation. This is called the Samshinsang. Even now, many Korean mothers offer the Samshinsang, which is ritual ceremony to Samshin, on the 21st after giving birth or on the day of giving birth. We believe that it's for the baby's long life without illness. The mother eats it after the rite. And kumjul is, when a baby was born, the family would have a straw forbidden rope called it kumjul in front of gate at the house to keep away from outsiders in an attempt to protect the baby from bad luck. It was believed that the gods governing childbirth would harm both baby and mother if strangers came into the house. Though based in folk belief, the rope had the practical scientific function of protecting newborn babies with weak immune systems from contact with germs brought in by strangers. People hung ropes for 21 days. Red peppers, charcoal, and straw were tied to a rope, which means that a son was born, and charcoal, seaweed, pine branches, and paper pointed to their daughter. Additionally, there is a Mongolian spot on the baby's hips. We believe that the reason babies have Mongolian spots on their hips is because Samshin hit them on their hips to tell them to go out to the world quickly. Seonangshin is a guardian deity that protects the land and the village. People thought that Seonangshin kept evil spirits and infectious disease from entering the village. The Seonangdang, where Seonangshin is staying, depends on the village, such as the old tree, pile of stones, and shrine at the entrance of the village. Especially our ancestors believed the guardian deities were in the old trees. Most of them served old trees and piles of stones at the entrance of the village at Seonangdang and Seonangshin, and they believed that cutting down the trees would cause bad things to the village and its residents. For an example, I would like to introduce a famous anecdote of Andong, Gyeongsangbuk-do. The story of Ghost Tree in Andong, Gyeongsangbuk-do. This tree became very famous when it was introduced on TV. Located in Andong, Gyeongsangbuk-do, this tree is expected to be over 300 years old in height and diameter. And this tree guarded the gate of Imcheonggak, 99 Khan, the birthplace of independence activist Lee Sang-yong, the first state councillor of the provisional government. At that time, only the palace where the king lived was able to build 100 Khan, so 99 Khan of the house meant considerable wealth. Imcheonggak is said to have produced and supported numerous independence activists during the Japanese occupation. Of course, the Japanese government didn't like it, and most of the buildings in South were demolished for the absurd reason of building a railway in this small rural village. As a result, railroad tracks were built in this area and most of buildings were demolished, but only this tree remained intact. So many independence activists used to solidify their resolve under this tree when they left the area. How did Japanese government leave the tree intact? In fact, they tried to cut down the tree, but there was a story. This tree is a kind of Sophra japonica and was called the scholarly tree because it's said to have the same spirit as the scholar. And at the time, only the ruling class Yangban could grow this tree. It can grow for more than 1,000 years. According to folk beliefs, this tree is planted at the entrance of the village, either by exorcising evil spirits or by protecting houses and villages. Therefore, harming this tree has been taboo. The reason why the Japanese government couldn't cut down this meaningful tree was because if people tried to cut down the tree, people were killed in mysterious way. When the worker tried to cut down a tree with an axe, a lightning bolt suddenly fell from the dry skin and killed the worker. Afterwards, when workers who tried to cut down the tree died for unknown reasons, people were reluctant to cut the tree, and eventually the Japanese government gave up cutting the tree. Over time, Andongten began to be built in the area in 1970, and there was another attempt to cut down the tree for road maintenance. Since the Japanese occupation, there were some people to worship this tree, so no one tried to cut down the tree. At the time, the builder paid about 500,000 won in return for cutting down the tree. Back then, the daily wage was thousands of won. It was tempting offer for people, but they were afraid of risk dying. Then one day, the first challenger appeared. He was briquette delivery man. He died instantly on the spot while cutting some twigs. And the compensation for cutting down this tree went up to 1 million won. 1 million won was a month's salary for an ordinary people at the time. The next challenger saw it from the bottom of the tree, but the tree was so big that he went back home in the evening. Then the man who returned home didn't show up after a few days, so people were worried, and they went to his house and found that he was dead with only his head burnt. Since the incident, the reward has risen from 1 million won to 2 million won. This challenger was a man in his 50s who ran a rice shop in the area, and he was cutting down trees with confidence and died in a car accident on his way home from meal. 3 people who tried to cut down trees died in a row, and the rumor spread throughout the country, and news and broadcast companies flocked it to the media. Eventually, the money for cutting down the tree went up to 5 million won, but no one applied. So this time, they hired strangers who didn't know much about this tree, and the workers were suddenly convulsed while cutting down the tree, paralyzed in the limbs, and died shortly after being taken to the hospital. Even the workers who went with him got a mysterious disease and died within months. The urgent builder finally hired the famous shaman to perform a shamanistic ritual called it good to drive something out of the tree. While doing their exorcism, she danced barefoot on a pair of sharp blades which is called it jakdu, and the shaman accidentally slipped from the jakdu and seriously injured her foot by the blades, and exorcism was stopped. Thus, the villagers were absolutely opposed to construction and eventually agreed to make roads without cutting down this tree. But the tree in the middle of the road caused many car accidents. However, in early morning August 2008, a resident who was passing in front of this tree found an amazing sight with only the bottom of the tree remaining. Rumor has it that a man's brother died at dawn while he was riding a motorcycle, bumped against his tree, and his brother cut with chainsaw in anger, but it wasn't clear whether it was true. Since then, the villagers who believed that there was a spirit in this tree have brought flowers of condolence to protect the remaining tree. On August 3, 2010, university students crashed into a fence surrounding a tree while driving, and the remaining roots were completely damaged. After that, there is no trace left in the pavement. The ghost tree, which had endured so many years of Japanese occupation, disappeared into history in vain.